will the Senate be afforded a proper opportunity to test the veracity of that issue? Finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the body of the documents that was sent to us and that was shared and exchanged by the respondents, herein being the Deputy Governor, we are making an application before this court that paragraph 48 all the way to paragraph 49 of the document be expunged for being irrelevant to these proceedings, and that the same do not speak to the question or to the case before the Senate. Mr. Speaker, sir, the offending paragraphs which appears that is the Deputy Governor's...
Yes, just hold on, Council. Senator Mogeni, what is the issue?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, the Council is doing very well, but for purposes of us being able to follow his submissions easily, we will want him to make reference to the particular volume of the document he's making reference to, and if possible, refer us to the page so that we are able to move with him.
Council, I thought I've made that position pretty clear.
Sir, I was just about to make reference. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm referring to the bundle of document appearing in blue from the firm of my senior land friend, Mr. Kato Kigen and Kimboi, marked as DG. That is the response, and again, the document is dated the 10th of March, 2024. Mr. Speaker, I am referring to...
What is the title of that volume, Council?
It's DG. It belongs to the Deputy Governor. It's indicated in black as DG, to mean, I think, Deputy Governor. At page E8, 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 E into brackets 8.
What is the issue, Senator Fernandi?
Mr. Speaker, I had indicated earlier that I had a clarification that I needed to seek under Constitutional Article 71 and then the impeachment procedure bill, impeachment procedure under the standing orders. So I wanted to get your guidance and maybe a ruling, because one of the lawyers that is representing the Deputy Governor of Kisii happens to be...
Senator Fernandi will come to that. Let the parties...
Okay, thank you.
Positions. Proceed, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I hope the honorable senators are with me. At page 8, paragraph 48, all the way to page 15, paragraph 64. Mr. Speaker, sir, the paragraphs that I have highlighted contains material facts that do not relate to the proceedings before the Senate. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, sir, the paragraphs that I have indicated mentions individuals or makes reference to individuals who are not party to these proceedings. For example, Mr. Speaker, sir, a look at paragraph 53 of the said document appearing at page 9 of the document make references to the governor of Kisii County. Further to that, Mr. Speaker, sir, at paragraph 61, at page 13 of the document, again, the document makes reference to the spouse, that's the first lady, to the governor of Kisii County. Equally, Mr. Speaker, sir, the pages makes reference to matters of budgets, and more so paragraph 56, 57, 58, at page, all the way to page 11. Those are not matters that forms part and parcel of these proceedings. The consequence of this pleading will only embarrass individuals who are not party to these proceedings, and not just embarrass, but deny them an opportunity to appear and be heard by this distinguished house. We all understand that it's strike law that the doctrines of natural justice, granting a party an opportunity to be heard, is one of the principles elucidated under Article 50 of the Constitution. And as such, Mr. Speaker, sir, the aforementioned paragraphs, it's our humble prayer that the same should be expunged from record, as they do not form part and parcel of the allegations contained in the charge now read to the Deputy Governor. As I sum up, Mr. Speaker, sir, and invite my learned friend, Mr. Mutuma, for supplementary submissions, permit me, Mr. Speaker, sir, to lead the House to page 12 of the document and paragraph F, just to indicate the irrelevance of the evidence contained. It makes reference to the members of the Judicial Service Commission. The allegations are that the Judicial Service Commission, that the effect of conducting county affairs, I may read in verbatim, and files at the personal residence is that the governor's wife attends meetings, makes inputs to official county matters, and serves as both protocol officers and deputy governor, inter alia, the Judicial Service Commission. In determining the relevance of these averments contained in the foresaid paragraphs, we invite the Senate to interrogate the purpose of such kind of averments, the objective of such kind of averments, and whether or not they inform the charge. Finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, permit me to guide the House to page 15 at paragraph 64. Again, it makes references to individuals not before this assembly, make references to video clips and photos that did not form part and parcel of the evidence at the county assembly. Suffice to note that during the proceedings at the county assembly, the deputy governor, beg your pardon, appeared before the county assembly and filed his response, dated the 29th of February. These video clips have no relevance to the proceedings, and I'm aware that it may prejudice the senators' determination as to the relevance of these video clips because they have not yet been played. We had the opportunity of reviewing them and analyzing them and made an opinion to which we invite the honorable senators to hold that they have no relevance. It may perhaps be paramount, or it perhaps may be important for those clips to be played for the senators to determine their relevance when determining to expurge the said paragraphs. With your kind permission, Mr. Speaker, sir, permit me to invite Mr. Mutuma for further submissions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. For record purposes, my name is Elias Mutuma, part of the legal team representing the County Assembly of Kisii. I want to make additional submissions, Mr. Speaker, sir, in addition to the relevant materials before this House. Mr. Speaker, sir, you will note that the charges as read by the House to the Honorable Deputy Governor contain four charges rather. Very specific charges that have been read, and the Deputy Governor has been able to respond that he's not guilty of the four charges. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is the four charges that were prosecuted by the County Assembly of Kisii. It is the four charges that the Honorable Deputy Governor responded to. It is the four charges that this House has been invited to make a determination on. Those charges, Mr. Speaker, sir, are contained at pages 15 and 21 of the County Assembly's bundle of documents. The same are, if I may read, page 15, page 15 contains the motion. Page 16, we have the first charge, gross violation of the Constitution or any other law. Charge number 2 is contained at pages 18, abuse of office. Charge number 3 is contained at page 20, crimes under national law. And the last one is contained as gross misconduct in the same page. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, in response to those charges, the Honorable Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Deputy Governor of Kisii responded through a response that has been filed in this court, in this Senate, and he has introduced a raft of other charges that he has created for himself and made a response to them. Those responses are the following. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at the Deputy Governor's response, the one my learned friend has made reference to, as from page 8, the Deputy Governor creates new charges that were not part of the County Assembly's charges. One of those is incompetence, budget absorption, budget variation, use of senior staff, mortgage provision, use of personal home for county functions and files and documents, not working with other leaders, use of an official personnel on county matters, and he proceeds to make a defense on those charges. Those charges have not been read to the Deputy Governor, but this House is being invited to make a determination on those matters. It would be a waste of crucial time for this House to proceed and listen to a defense that contains a response to charges that were not part of the charges by the County Assembly. It is on that basis, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we ask the honorable senators to expunge that part of the response because it has no bearing, it has no relevance to these proceedings. That is all, Mr. Speaker, sir.
The side of the County Assembly, are you done with your opening statement?
Mr. Speaker, sir, we addressed the Honorable House pursuant to Rule 10 on preliminary issues because our opening remarks or statements may not be material until this question is determined because it will inform on how then our opening remarks then will be made and put across.
You see, Council, You could have made your opening remarks, and in so doing, you raise these issues, so that the team from the deputy governor, representing the deputy governor, in their opening statement also will have an opportunity also to respond to your preliminary objections. And thereafter, then the Senate will make a determination on those issues.
I am well guided, Mr. Speaker, sir, but as a practitioner, I think I'm so fixated to the court proceedings, which dictates that preliminary issues ought to be addressed first, so that.
Very well, if that is your position, then have your seat.
But I may be guided, Mr. Speaker, sir. Then
Well, I've guided you,
perhaps
but you
again I
start
can make
to your
the
proceeding.
opening remarks, if you may allow me, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll take the first 10 minutes, then I'll share with my colleagues in respect to the opening remarks.
What is the point of order, Senator, for Baringo?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've listened keenly to the councils for the County Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I thought your guidance was clear because the stage you are in, Mr. Speaker, as per the program, is actually opening statement on behalf of the County Assembly. I am worried, Mr. Speaker, that if we allow further, we are likely to lose the track. Mr. Speaker, this is not a case between this assembly, or rather this house, and any of the parties. It is their case. Mr. Speaker, I want to plead that perhaps you reconsider your position, because we wanted therefore to, and again, Mr. Speaker, for you to be directed that you make a finding at this point. It is not the Speaker, it is the House. So, Mr. Speaker, guide us on that issue, because a very sensitive matter. This House is being watched now across the country and the world.
Senator Mogene.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna, you don't have to beg. I will give you an opportunity.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, maybe just to assist counsel for the County Assembly. You know, I thought his opening remarks would have given him an opportunity to summarize for us, senators, what the case for the County Assembly is, so that he sets the stage for us to make a following. In terms of the objections that he has, when the time comes for that evidence to be adduced by the deputy governor, maybe he could raise his objection. But he should utilize, with tremendous respect to him, the opening remarks to summarize for us, because we just want to know, to have a glimpse of the case that is facing the deputy governor. And you have guided him. Maybe we should also advise him that it's good you take the ruling of the Speaker as a guidance for you, so that you follow and you make these proceedings simpler for us to follow.
Yeah, Senator Sifuna.
Mr. Speaker, with the greatest respect to all the senior counsel who have spoken before me, I believe that this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, and the counsel for the Assembly is very much in order to require that a ruling be made on the preliminary requests. The only thing I fault them for is being too verbose on a very simple request. A request has been made pursuant to Rule 10 of these proceedings, that a witness be summoned by this House. We need to make a decision after hearing, of course, from the team for the Deputy Governor on whether there's going to be any prejudice if this gentleman called David Hagai Oyagi is summoned. That is a matter that has to be dispensed with before we hear opening remarks. Mr. Speaker, the second request is expunging of certain paragraphs that are being claimed not to be relevant. That's all this council needed to say without going into too many stories, because we would want to get into the meat of the argument. But, Honorable Speaker, preliminary matters must be dealt with at the preliminary point so that it will set the tone on what we are going to hear and what we are not going to hear. So I request that the House makes a determination on the request to summon this gentleman, and if it is after hearing the counsel for the Deputy Governor, then we move. Then we make a decision on the other question, whether we want to expunge those paragraphs now, or we wait until we see the irrelevance, then we expunge them at that particular point. That is the guidance that I wanted to give the House, Mr. Speaker, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Senator Fernandi.
Mr. Speaker, I agree largely with my colleagues who have spoken before me. We needed to either we allow the councils for the county assembly to make opening remarks, but I thought, Mr. Speaker, as the tradition and precedent, we always dispense. We always dispense of the preliminary objections. And on the issue of expunging the paragraphs that they have requested, the summoning of witnesses, Mr. Speaker, I thought you should have guided them so that we dispense of. But now the question should be, when you invited them to speak for 30 minutes, was it on the aspect of their opening remarks, Mr. Speaker, or was it on the aspect of raising preliminary objections? Because in my thinking, he would have allowed that the preliminary objections are raised, dispensed of, then now it sets down for the engagement. And in the opening remarks, my colleague, Mr. Speaker, they should have given us an overview of their case. With no pun intended, Mr. Speaker, it should have been like a woman's skirt, long enough to cover essentials, short enough to arouse curiosity, Mr. Speaker, so that it gives and sets the tone, Mr. Speaker, of Mr. Speaker, so that it sets a tone. Oh, I'm not making, I said, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, no pun intended. Can you be listening carefully, my colleagues? So that is, I was just saying, Mr. Speaker, can you protect me, Mr. Speaker?
Well, I will protect you if you're orderly.
Yes, I'm orderly, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
I'm orderly, Mr. Speaker, because I was saying in opening remarks, Mr. Speaker, it should be something that is long enough to cover essentials and something short enough to arouse curiosity. And that is what is all about the opening statement, Mr. Speaker. So my request, allow us to raise the PO, dispense of the preliminary objections, then allow them to give them their opening remarks, and I've given them a simple advice, and I hope they will take it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, allow me to guide the House as follows. If you look at the program, between 11:45 to 12:15, that time was reserved for the opening statement of the County Assembly, and thereafter to be followed by the opening statement on behalf of the Deputy Governor. Now, Honorable Senators, as the County Assembly is making its opening statement, they can, on the same breath, raise the preliminary objections. Thereafter, when the Deputy Governor is making the opening statement, in the same breath, they can respond to the preliminary objections raised by the County Assembly. If you look at the document before you, it contains some preliminary objections by the Deputy Governor. And I want to believe as they're making their statement, they will also canvass those preliminary objections, to which then I will allow the County Assembly to respond. Thereafter, Honorable Senators, you'll have an opportunity to deliberate on those preliminary objections, dispense with the same, to allow then, after the lunch break, to hear the evidence. Because we cannot assign time to hear only preliminary objections, dispense with them, then come back for opening statements. Let us handle them at the same time. So, County Assembly, your 30 minutes is long gone. However, with this new direction that I've given, the directive that I've given, I will allow you to put what is the case of the County Assembly. You have dealt more on the preliminary objections. Proceed to state your case before we allow the representation from the Deputy Governor to also give us their opening statement.
We must oblige.
That way we'll save on time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, our case is very simple. It's a case of a deputy governor who decides to use his office for personal gain. Is a deputy governor gone rogue. Is a deputy governor who has decided not to inspire the youth of this country. In my opening remarks, permit me, Mr. Speaker, sir, to refer to the book of Exodus, chapter 18, verse 21. Moreover, look for able men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy, and hate bribes. Equally, Mr. Speaker, sir, permit me to refer to Surah ya Pili, or the second chapter, verse 188 of the Quran. And they are taking of bribe, to thou were forbidden. For taking it and the devouring of men, substance worthiful bribes. And we have prepared for the disbelief among them and a painful moment. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the 29th, or the county government of Kisii, through the Guasco, advertises for a job for the commercial manager. The job is carried on the newspaper. The deputy governor gets to know about it, informs his friend, Mr. Joseph Mosati, whom he alleges he has been friends for the last 32 years, that here is an opportunity where your son can take or can be absorbed into the employment, makes arrangements on how to extort, defraud, and benefit with 800,000 shillings, creates a scheme where he meets the managing director of Guasco, informs her in advance that I have a candidate who will be presenting his application before you, convinces her or attempts to convince her that at the appropriate time, I will do the necessary. And the necessary hearing being bribing the director of Guasco for purposes of return of a favor in favor of Dennis Mosati. Dennis Mosati is given the responsibility by his father to raise the 800,000 shillings. A young man, a poor man, a jobless man, a family man, a man who is destitute and desperate for a job, does all that is within his means, sells his salon so as to raise the 800,000 shillings, sells all his households, sufurias and everything else, so that he can raise the 800,000 shillings as sought by the deputy governor. Succeeds in that mission, raises the money even from his friends, and upon the success of the mission of raising the 800,000 shillings, forwards the same. The father is involved in that scheme, the mother is involved in that scheme, but finally the money lands to the deputy governor. Through the M-Pesa, through cash, the county assembly shall give evidence to that extent that yes, money was sent from the M-Pesa of Joseph Mosati, money was sent from the M-Pesa of Dennis Mosati, the complainant, and equally money was sent from the M-Pesa of Ann Mosati. And the money all landed to the benefit of the M-Pesa of the deputy governor. Subsequently, on the same day, the deputy governor sends 100,000 shillings to one Lucy Wahito. Upon receipt of these 100,000 shillings, Lucy Wahito, the managing director of Guasco, is perplexed, wonders why the deputy governor has decided to be that generous. Upon placing a call to the deputy governor in search of the reason for the forwarding of the remittance of the said amount, the deputy governor merely makes a statement. You remember what I told you? This is meant for what I had told you when I summoned you in my office. The good Lucy Muhito decides to resend the said amount, refuses to be influenced, refuses to be bribed, refuses to be corrupt. In essence, Lucy Wahito meets the qualification of the qualifications of the persons described by the Bible and by the Quran, refuses to be corruptible. Finally, the deputy governor receives the money, 100,000 shillings, resent back to him, and makes no further follow-ups. In his defense, he says that this was made to you, Lucy, as an error, takes no efforts to refund the same, to reverse, or even to call Lucy for the reversal. The other limb of the case, Mr. Speaker, sir, is where the deputy governor decides to abuse his office. Being the powerful man that he is, and his brother being the miserable old man that he is, decides to have it fixed his way. He mobilizes the county government enforcement officers to go and arrest the poor Monda, the sickly Ruben Monda, the hopeless Ruben Monda. He's burdened into the police vehicle, courtesy and at the behest of the deputy governor. At the county assembly, Hansons bears as witness that yes, he confirmed that he's the one who mobilized the said enforcement officers. And be that as it may, the deputy governor, with all the resources afforded to him, decides even to apply the county resources in applying 4 officers, enforcement officers, uniformed to do odd chores at his farm. Odd as even cooking for his dogs. So the county government the Senate is presented with a case such as this one. Previously, the cases of impeachment, they have been pegged mostly on the question of the violation of the Constitution and the mismanagement of county resources. This is a unique case. It's a case where we are not inviting the senators to look at whether or not there is any resource or funds that have been lost. The question of oversight means that the Senate also has to look and interrogate whether the persons in the name of the county deputy governor squares out with Chapter 6 of the Constitution. Is this a man full of integrity? Is this a man who can be trusted? Is this a man who can be held to account? Is this a man who is transparent? Is this a man who can inspire the youths? Is this a man who can be trusted with the county resources? Evidence will bear us witness when we begin to tender the same, that Dennis is not the only victim. The public participation processes that were conducted on the 26th of February, we have people claiming that yes, the deputy governor is a man who is full of insatiable greed for resources, to the extent that he solicits resources as low as 8,000 shillings so that he can facilitate the governor's bursaries. That is the man that is being trusted to oversee the activities of the county government of Kisii. Evidence will be tendered, honorable senators, at the fullness of time to prove that this is a man who does not deserve the mercy of this house. This is a man who does not deserve any further stay and holding that position of a deputy governor. How can a deputy governor solicit 20,000 shillings so that he can assist poor people, hustlers, to access the bursary? The deputy governor, you are elected by these individuals to serve them, but you at the end of the day, you end by extorting them, defrauding them. is not a man worth his salt. This is not a man worth the favor of this house. Permit me to invite Mr. Mutuma for further submissions. Sorry, Mr. Mwangi, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Mr. Speaker, sir, my name is Mwangi. I rise to Mr. Speaker, sir, the Deputy Governor receives money from Dennis Misiati at 8:33 p.m., receives another bunch of 49,000 at 20:37 p.m. on 28th of May, 2023, and within a span of 40 minutes, sends 100,000 shillings to the Managing Director of Guasco, Lucy Wahito, at 21:24 p.m. on the 28th of May 2023. He further sends money to 3 other people on the same day, 28th of May 2023, and the last transaction on that day was made at midnight. So he sends 100,000 shillings, and in his defense, he raises the issue that this money was sent by an error. Surely, from 9:24 p.m. to midnight, when he was sending the last transaction on that day, the Deputy Governor did not realize that he has sent money by an error until he is reminded by one Lucy the following morning. Honorable Speaker, on the issue of arresting his own blood brother, Reuben Monda, the Deputy Governor deploys not only 1, not 2, not 3, but a contingency of 20 county enforcement officers, accompanying police officers, to come and arrest and bundle his own brother into a motor vehicle. Surprisingly, Mr. Speaker, his own brother, today, because of the events that the ordeal that he went through on that day, he is now a diabetic man who has since started injecting himself with insulin, a condition that was not there before then. Honorable members, as I cede my 10 minutes to Mr. Mutuma, I invite this honorable House to make a determination on the issue of whether or not the Honorable Deputy Governor should be removed from office by way of impeachment, as we have shown, and we shall strictly indicate to you and bring out through the witnesses that there was a clear and well-calculated way by the Deputy Governor, who even confirms that he spoke to one Lucy to seek for favors. And he confirms that also during the County Assembly, and the Hansard confirms so. He also confirms that he spoke to Lucy about the issues of the bribe, but Lucy told him that the interview will be done by way of merit. Honorable members, I cede my few minutes to Mr. Mutuma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and the honorable members of the Senate. The case of the Kisii County Assembly is simple. It is a cry by the most vulnerable members of our society who have suffered at the hands of their leaders. It is a case of the most vulnerable members of the society who have been exploited by those in positions, those that they pay through their own taxpayers' money, and that is what these honorable senators are being invited to make a determination on. Honorable Speaker, sir, you will realize from the testimony of Dennis Misati that as a result of this ordeal, after 12 years of trial, getting their second born, the wife was so depressed to the extent that she collapsed and lost the baby. The thought of having sold everything that they had, the thought of losing everything that they were calling a source of livelihood was too much for her to bear. She had to undergo a miscarriage. at the hands of the Deputy Governor. Last year, but one, honorable senators, I had the opportunity of appearing before the Supreme Court where we were on the same side with my learned friend, Mr. Katwa Kigen, and I want to quote him. He told the honorable judges of the Supreme Court that you have a right to be hungry. You have a right to be bitter. When a witness appears before you and concocts facts, when a witness appears before you and twists events and lies to you, looking at you straight in the eyes and tries to twist a very simple issue, then as honorable senators, you have a right to be angry. When you listen to the testimony of the Deputy Governor, you have that right. Invoke it. Tell him he's lying. Tell him that whatever he's telling you does not make sense. You do not receive money from an innocent person. Send it to the very person that you're being accused of seeking a favor from. You do not make attempts to reverse 48 hours later. The person you're seeking to bribe asks you to reverse, you do not. Then you come before Senate and look them straight in the eye and say, I had sent that money by mistake. You have a right to be angry, exercise that right. Most obliged, Mr. Speaker, sir.
The County Assembly team, you've concluded your statement?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you.
Other than just to mention that the simplicity of this case was witnessed on the 31st of December 2012, when the Deputy Chief Justice, as then she was, Honorable Lady Justice Nancy Baraza, pinched someone's nose. Rebecca was a victim. Just pinching the nose of an individual caused the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya to go home. That is a test. The test is, can a public officer, a state officer, be allowed to behave in such a manner? Does the conduct of the Deputy Governor answer to the tenets of Article 10? Is he accountable? Is he transparent? Is he a man of integrity? Does he respect his office? Does this conduct bring honor and reputation to the office of the Deputy Governor? Equally, Mr. Speaker, sir, the case of Nixon in 1974, he faced impeachment only on the count of the Watergate case. What had the President of the Republic of America done, the United States of America done? Sent individuals to go and break into the Democratic National Convention offices at Watergate. Then it made attempts to conceal that evidence. On that basis, a president went home. On the basis of soliciting, receiving 800,000 shillings from poor Kenyans, Mr. Monda must go home. On the basis of using the state resources to harass innocent and hopeless Kenyans, Mr. Monda must go home. On the count of misuses of the county resources, the meager county resources, Mr. Monda must go home. I so invite the senators to keenly look at the case of Nixon and the case of Nancy Baraza. Most obliged.
Thank you. Now I will allow the team of the Deputy Governor to take us through their statement. Now, Council, there's a difference between an opening statement and a final submission. Because what I've just heard from the last bit of the County Assembly, those are final submissions. So let's hear your opening statement, not your final submission.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and members of the Senate. When we come down to cross-examining the witnesses that have been that will be called by the County Assembly, And when we call our witnesses, you will be surprised at how far the person they are describing is from what they have described him. You will be surprised at how exaggerated the adjectives they have used are. You will realize that the deputy governor is indeed a man of integrity, a Christian, and a man of conscience. I would like to address the 5 counts. I know there is repeated contention that there are 4, but there are 5. The first one is whether or not he took a bribe from one Dennis Misati. The second one is whether he gave a bribe to one Lucy Wahito. The third one is whether he threatened one Dennis Misati. The fourth one is whether he misused the staff of the county assembly. And the fifth one is whether he misused his authority to have his brother arrested. On the first count, members of the Senate, the allegation is basically this, that the deputy governor received a sum of, in some paragraphs of their claim, they say he received 799,000 shillings. In others, they say he received 800. And that 800,000 was meant to be a bribe to enable Dennis get a job. Our case will be this, and in the introductory part of the introduction of the said Dennis, he is described as a 37-year-old gentleman. Our case will be this, that the sum of 800,000 was received by the deputy governor. However, that amount was a refund of money he had lent to the father of Dennis. We will be calling the father of Dennis to come and confirm that indeed, number one, he received that money from the deputy governor in the period around October, November 2022, and on the 28th of May 2023, when he visited Mr. Monda asked him whether he could get back his refund as he was traveling, and the said father of Dennis, that is Joseph Misati, said, yes, I can refund you, I have the funds, and actually gave him the amount. We will show from both M-Pesa accounts and from the bank accounts that indeed the money emanated and came from the accounts of Mr. and Mrs. Misati. Part of our defense team will address you on this, but I just want your attention to be drawn to this first point immediately in our response to the first count, that you will be subjected to the spectacle where a father is saying, this money belongs to me, I was refunding someone, a friend of mine of 32 years, money I'd borrowed about 8 or 9 months earlier. You will be subjected to a spectacle where you have to choose whether to believe the father or to believe the son. You will be subjected to a situation where you have to determine whether the money actually belongs to the son or it belongs to the father and the mother. You will be subjected to a situation where you would have to determine whether the allegation of having sold a saloon has anything to do with this case, or it was fabricated with the intention of whipping up emotions. On the second count of the alleged giving of bribe, we do not deny that indeed an amount of 100,000 came from the M-Pesa account of the deputy governor to the account of Lucy Wahito. We do not deny that. However, we've explained, and we will show you the records, the M-Pesa records, showing that it was a mistake on the part of His Excellency Dr. Monda in the remittance of the amount, and that he had intended to actually remit the amount to somebody who had given him service, one Gladys Aminga, who had given him a transport service. We will show you that the phone records or the phone book recording by the deputy governor was such that the names of the two people were next to each other because they are both chief officers in the Kisii County Assembly, and that was just a mistake. Now, it is said that Lucy is eligible to be made a saint because he returned the money and refused to be influenced. We will invite your attention to 2 details on this issue. The first detail is that by 28th of May, interviews and scoring of the candidates had been done about 13 days earlier, that is on the 15th of May. So that by 28th, really, the person who had successfully contested for that office had been determined by reason of the scores done by the various members of the board. It had nothing, it could not possibly be a basis to have influenced who would be assigned this job. The second issue that we will be addressing on that issue is in the statement that was presented by Lucy at the county assembly. She was very explicit. She said, I received an amount of 100,000. I called the deputy governor and asked him, what is this money for? She says that when I asked the deputy governor that question, he kept quiet. On our part, we are saying that the deputy governor told him, it is a mistake, I meant to send it to Gladys. But just leaving it, we are taking Lucy's statement at its best. Lucy does not say it was meant to influence the decision she was to make or the board was to make for purposes of giving the job. Now, after having appeared before the county assembly and having presented our case, immediately the county assembly, the people sponsoring this motion, went back and did another affidavit. And now Lucy suddenly remembers that indeed there was a very specific statement by His Excellency Dr. Monda saying this money is meant to assist me on unemployment. We just pray, honorable members, that please do give consideration to that change of mind, that this change of mind is caused by the way we conducted our defense at the county assembly and is meant to fill up gaps. And probably to just emphasize that indeed it is a statement made after we had put in our defense and was meant to influence this assembly, this Senate, to think that indeed her earlier statement saying he kept quiet is not necessarily accurate. The third thing I'll be requesting, we will be showing, and we requested that you take into account, is that it is said that Lucy received the money, asked for it to be reversed, and then eventually sent it back when it was not reversed. Now, I pray that you just keep in mind the dates. It is said that the money was received on 28th. Lucy returns the money on 30th, 2 days down the line. We will take you through the M-Pesa and show you that Lucy must have celebrated the receipt of this money. Because if you look at the M-Pesa account, you will see how she immediately utilized that money upon receipt of that money. And so we will be saying the hero they are referring to is not actually a hero. But on our part, our point of emphasis is simply to say this, that it was a mistake, the money was returned, and Dr. Monda was constrained and compelled to look for another money to pay the said Aminga who was meant to have been paid and whose name is next to Lucy. Now, coming to the issue of threats, just probably one more statement on that issue of Lucy. We will be requesting that in fairness to Dr. Monda, we do recall our lives. And remember that from time to time we have made mistakes in sending money to the wrong person when we intended it to be to somebody else. And that mistake cannot be taken away from Dr. Monda merely because he's standing trial. On the issue of threats, Dennis Misati, the son of Joseph Misati, who will be coming to testify, says he was threatened and he relocated with his family. We will be showing that indeed there was no communication between Dr. Monda and the said Dennis Misati. The demand letter he's saying he made, we are not aware of. The late report to ESCC, which he says is the basis of that threat, there is no demonstration of that. It's just a mere allegation. And as a matter of rule of law, he has not made any report to anybody that indeed he was threatened to the police. And these allegations are made 8 months down the line. On the allegation of the misuse of staff, we will be demonstrating that indeed as a deputy governor he is entitled to be assigned some staff members to help at home. We will be demonstrating that the allegation that these staff members, and I'm surprised that my colleagues, it is not anywhere in the pleading, so I suspect it is my colleagues who have come up with it, saying that these staff were cooking for dogs. I wonder why they had to choose dogs. But our point would be this, that the deputy governor is entitled to staff members. None of those staff members have said anywhere that they have been misused. It is said that these staff members were used to dig a borehole, a well. And this should be in the period of around 2024, 2023. We will be showing that indeed there has been no well dug at the deputy governor's home in the last almost 10 years, because the well was dug in the year 2003. We will be showing that indeed he doesn't have dairy, and that bit of the allegation that he was using the staff to manage dairy is not true. We will be demonstrating that he doesn't run any farming in Kisii. The land assigned to him is used for purposes of, he has planted trees on the farm, and so he doesn't have any farm which he could deploy the staff to work in. And we will be saying this is a complete falsehood, unfortunately, from his brother. Now, on this point, I just want to hang on 1 minute and invite your attention to this. So, on the first two counts of, or rather the first count of taking a bribe, on the third count of threatening Dennis, you will be having a situation where the father is testifying against his son, or rather the father and the mother are testifying against his son. On this count of the alleged misuse of staff, and the next point being the arrest of the brother, you will be having a situation where this Senate is being asked to take the place of the mother of the two brothers and preside and determine their dispute. We are saying that this Senate is being reduced to an unfortunate level by being asked to preside over disputes over families, and a colleague of mine will address you on that. Lastly, on the issue of the arrest of the brothers, we draw your attention to the point that it is Dr. Monda's case that indeed he planted the trees. The trees belong to him. He planted way back in the year 2007. We've called witnesses who were involved in the planting of those trees. The brother came in and started cutting the trees. Dr. Monda did nothing other than to just report to the police and say, my brother is cutting the trees that belong to me. The police did the investigation and determined that indeed, from the face of what they had, it was the brother who was on the wrong in cutting the trees belonging to Dr. Monda and had him arrested. That will be our case. One of the things then you'll be being asked then is whether you want, at this Senate level, to make a choice of believing either the brother, that is Robin, or Dr. Monda Robert. The second one is whether you want to take up the role of the police who are already investigating the issue. Now, my colleagues have tried to make the issue a motive by saying that over 20 people went to arrest Dr. Monda. Now, again, our position is that he merely reported and the police went to arrest him. However, even assuming 20 people went to arrest, and we are saying we don't know how many people went to arrest, but even assuming 20 people went to arrest, is the issue the number of people who went to arrest, or whether there is a culpable offense, whether the police were entitled or at a legitimate reason to effect the arrest. So that the issue of the number of people, the issue of the summons for a guy is really relevant. It doesn't change anything. What matters is whether or not Dr. Monda was right to have reported and whether the police were acting within the scope of their duties in effecting the arrest. Then, Mr. Speaker, the County Assembly then on the 21st of February 2024 resolved that before they determine the impeachment of the Deputy Governor, they should go for public participation.